If you've ever opened your phone and seen a one-star review about your business, you know the feeling. Your stomach drops, your mind starts racing, you start replaying the event in your head, wondering what you missed or whether it's even fair. And in that moment, the response you want to write is usually the wrong one. On this episode, we're going to talk about how professionals handle bad reviews and why they're not the disaster most people think they are. Welcome to the DJs Guru Hangout. The mission here is simple: to help you become a better performer and a more informed event professional. I've spent my career working as a DJ and as the owner of an equipment store, and I'm here to share what that experience has taught me. Please do me a favor and subscribe or follow to stay connected. Now, let's get into it. How you doing, everybody? Welcome down to the DJs Guru Hangout. We're really happy to have you here. Today we are going over, you got a bad review, now what? And there are a lot of practical things that we can do to handle those, to learn from those experiences, and to play the long game so that way one bad review does not define you as a performer, as a business owner. So the first thing I want to do is let's just kind of get into what we're going to go through on this episode. So by the end of this episode, we're going to talk about, number one, why bad reviews are inevitable and often useful. Number two, we're going to talk about what DJs get wrong when responding. And number three, we're going to talk about how to turn a negative review into long-term credibility. And within these segments here, I will talk about one hidden thing that people may not always think about, and we'll get to that later. So let's dive right into segment number one. I also want to say hello to everyone watching on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch. Thank you so much for watching. We're really happy to have you down here. So number one, what a bad review feels like and why it's not such a bad thing. So I did a little research here, and I want to tell you that there's something called negative bias, right? Negative bias is something where in studies in behavioral psychology, they show that negative feedback triggers stronger emotional reactions than positive feedback. So one bad review can feel heavier than 50 positives. And that is a lot to take. So if you're out there and you're working really hard and you're thinking you're doing a great job, to get that negative review, it's painful, it hurts. And I think that is one of the biggest triggers for why sometimes people don't always respond to these correctly. So that's negative bias. And it makes a lot of sense when you start to think about it. Everybody wants to do a good job. Everyone wants their clients to love what they did, but no one's perfect. So let's also talk a little bit about consumer behavior and why a negative review really isn't the end of the world. Data consistently shows that most consumers read business responses to reviews before making a decision. A professional response can increase trust. So it's not just the bad review. You know, there's a lot of people out there that are smart, that are intelligent, that can see what may not be a totally credible bad review. And if you respond to that review professionally, it gives that prospective client a nice, warm, cozy feeling to say, well, this seemed a little out of the ordinary, but I can see here the business owner responded to it professionally, and I see they resolve their conflicts. They want to address and make their customers happy. And that's something that is really, really important to understand and to keep in mind as well. So in my opinion, the mistake most people make, it's not getting the bad review, because bad reviews are inevitable. There's really nothing you can do to stop it. And we'll talk later about this, but I'm always suspicious about anyone who has 100% feedback rating or has 0 negative reviews. I just don't know how that's even possible. You know, at some point you're going to get a bad review if you're in business long enough. That's just the way of the world, especially nowadays. So for me, I think the biggest mistake though that people do make is immediately responding and then responding from ego instead of professionalism and not hearing what the review is saying. And we'll get more into that later as we go through a practical way to actually address these. But understand that when you get a bad review, it's a nice thing to frame it in a way where, okay, I didn't do my best at this event, but this customer is taking a chance and taking time out of their day to engage with me and tell me what went wrong. This is an opportunity for me to learn. This is an opportunity for me to listen and hear what my clients are saying about my performance, my service, and maybe I can take this as a moment to improve, to listen and to improve certain things that maybe I knew already weren't as good as they could be. And sometimes that's where the trigger is, when you knew you didn't do the great job in this one aspect and you get called out for it. And sometimes that's what happens. So I think understanding that bad reviews are going to happen and the way that we respond to these are the most important thing. It's not getting that bad review. Bad reviews are going to happen. All right, so let's move into segment number 2 here. And I think this is the practical advice part of this episode. And listen, I've gotten bad reviews myself in the DJ business and the DJ supply business. It happens. People are not always going to love what you do. You have a bad day. You have a bad situation. Sometimes that's out of your control. For me, shipping damage is something that I get bad reviews for sometimes. And obviously, it's not something that we're able to control. It's all about how you handle that after the fact. So let's talk now about how to best handle a bad review. So for me, and I'll go into a little bit of my analyzation here and my research, studies show that businesses with a mix of positive and a few negative reviews are perceived as more trustworthy than those with perfect ratings. Consumers find 5-star or 100% ratings suspicious. As I said earlier, yes, I don't necessarily like to see 100%. It makes me a little nervous. I like to see a negative review about something within the business and a business owner responding to it and telling them, yes, we see that as well. We're going to improve it. You can count on us to improve it. I think that's something that really goes a long way with most consumers out there. So let's talk about a scenario. You worked your butt off at an event. You had bride and a groom, right? Let's say it's a wedding. Bride and a groom had a very, very involved music list. And they wanted you to play all the music on their sheet. There was no latitude from that. But when you got to the event, you played the music off their sheet. However, it didn't work. And you never really dove deeper to ask them, hey, if your music isn't working and the party isn't going the way that we want it to be going, do I have some latitude to maybe play a little bit of the songs that I know that will get people up and then start to mix and match? So let's say that didn't happen. The party ends. It was okay. It wasn't the best, but you know you did a good job. You did your best. You tried to work within the parameters that you had. And unfortunately, it just didn't go as well as it could have gone. And a couple of days pass. You wake up and you get the bad review. And the review is cutting. It goes into everything that your fear had when you left that event, everything that you were worried about. They addressed it all. Didn't play from my list. People were coming up asking for songs. He was taking requests when we specifically told him not to. They showed up 15 minutes later than they were supposed to. And sometimes when you don't do the right thing in these negative responses, they start to compact, right? So they start to point out every little thing that you did wrong. And as you're reading that, your stress level is starting to rise. You feel yourself getting warm. You can start to see red because you were afraid it was coming, and here it is in black and white right in front of you. And it's hard. Let's say it was a 1-star review. It's hard. I worked my butt off. I took time away from my family. I went there 2 hours before. It took me 2 hours to get home. It took me an hour to pack up. I got paid, but I didn't feel leaving like I did the best job or that the party was as good as it could have been. And now you have the validation of the bad review. So how are we now going to respond to that? Now, as I said earlier, and we'll talk a little bit about my response structure, and I'd like you to try this if you ever get a bad review or when you get your next bad review, because it will happen if you're in business long enough. So the big thing for me is do not respond immediately. Never, ever, ever respond immediately. Pause. Wait at least 24 hours before responding. That's the first thing. So you read that review about the event, and it hurts. And now you're thinking about it all day, and you're thinking about what you could have done differently. You're thinking about maybe you're blaming. Maybe you're out there saying, well, I told them this dance list wasn't going to work. I told the people coming up for requests that I really want to play it because the music's not working, but I tried my best to get them to stop. They wouldn't keep coming. They wouldn't stop coming up to me. I understand the trials and tribulations and how difficult running an event can be. I've done many of them and I still do. A lot of times the clients don't understand that, right? But it's your job to act in a professional manner. So all this is going on, and it may be true or not, but at the end of the day, the goal at this point is now to make the best out of a negative situation. So after that 24-hour moratorium and that pause time, I would say, number two, I'm going to come back with a fresh set of eyes, rested, a little bit more understanding, and I'm going to read the review and I'm going to hear it carefully, because hearing and listening are not the same thing. When I say hear, it's important to try to understand what the client is saying, what they are saying, and what their perception is. Try to get into their shoes and see it from their perspective. Don't just dismiss what they're saying. Don't assume that you know better than them. They didn't do this or they didn't do that, and that's why I had to do this. No, take an opportunity to really listen and to hear what they're saying about everything that it is in that bad review, and think about, all right, well, you know what? I could have maybe done this differently. I probably should have invested a little bit more time to ensure that this didn't happen. Somewhere along the line, there is something that you as the business owner could have done better to likely avoid this bad review. So now is the learning moment. Now is the time to really think about how we're going to stop this from happening again, really, because this is one of those situations where, okay, it's been brought to my attention, so I can either continue to do what I want to do and doing it the same way, or I can actually take this into consideration and change what I'm doing. So that's number two. Learning moment, read, hear. Now, number three, now is your opportunity to respond, and respond publicly. Respond in the same place where they left the review. Don't go to Facebook and write a post, a cryptic post about this terrible client you had. People that do that, I mean, you got to grow up, quite honestly. Don't do any of that. You respond in the review section. You don't bring anybody else into it. It's between you and the client. You respond professionally, and you do not get specific. Okay, so it sounds something like, I'm sorry to hear that you had a negative experience. We always strive for our customers to leave having the most wonderful time they've ever had. We are regretful that that did not happen in this case. We would love to talk to you about it in more detail offline. Please do me a favor, send me a direct message, or even leave your phone number. Please give me a call. I'm available anytime. I would love to resolve this with you and find a way that we can move forward. Do that publicly. Why are you doing that publicly? Once again, you're doing it publicly, number one, because you want to resolve the issue. If somebody brings you a negative review and they are telling you something, you should want to, as a good business owner, you should want to resolve that issue. You should want to make it right. Make it right. That's something that, as a business owner myself, and even before I owned a business and I was just in management, My goal was always to make it right. I did not want to F anybody over, right? Do the right thing. So respond publicly, professionally, and invite the conversation offline. Now that you've done that, let's say you do have an opportunity to speak to the client. A lot of people, oh, well, they already left a negative review. The party's over. I'm done. I'm done. I'm just going to walk away from it. I'm just going to eat the bad review. It is what it is. And that's one approach. Sure. My approach would be different. I'm going to try to resolve this still, if possible. Whether it's for me and a retail customer, maybe it's a customer that had a bad experience. They didn't get something in time. Something got damaged. If it's a party that I did, whatever the issue is, I don't know if I'm going to ever do another event with them. But guess what? They have friends and family. And in my retail situation, I would love to get them back as a customer, because you're going to show your customers, your clients, more about who you are as a business when things go wrong. It's easy to be great when everything's going right. When things go wrong, that's your opportunity to show people who you really are. So number 4, if you can resolve these issues after the fact, do yourself a favor, get back in touch with the bride and groom or the person you did the party for, and find a way to make it right. Whether that be refunding some money, sending them a gift, offering them a discount on a future event. That's always a great thing to do. Whatever it might be in the future, here's a coupon for a future event. We'd love to have you back. So those are just some ideas and ways that I would handle it. But I think this is the approach that has worked for me. I used to get very specific, and people would write a review and I would go through it line by line. And I would say, this isn't true. And that didn't happen. And we have proof. And that would be my response. And this is a long time ago, but no, never, ever, ever respond like that. Ever, ever. Too many people are watching, and it's not a situation where you want to be right anymore. Quite honestly, it's really not. It's time to move forward and do the best you can now with the bad situation. All right. So that's segment 2. Let's move on to segment 3, our final segment, the long game. So reputation is kind of like having an IRA. Reputation compounds over time. So if you have a good reputation and you continue to do business a certain way, year over year over year, people continue to talk. People will tell you what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right. And that reputation then gets passed to other people. Word of mouth is the best advertising, right? So the more you do right, the more people will notice it, the more people will talk about it, and your reputation will just increase in credibility year over year. Clients read patterns. I couldn't spell when I did this clearly. I've got 2 typos already, but that's all good. Clients read patterns, not single events. So we all have, it's like a relief pitcher, right? In baseball, any baseball fans out there? Everyone has a bad night. Sometimes you go in, you just don't have it. And, listen, not the same with the wedding world. You can't just go in and not have it. I understand that. But the point is that sometimes we just don't. And you know what? We've got to wash it away. And we have to understand that the next event is the next event to prove that that was an aberration. That's not the way we do business. That's not how we normally handle things. And the next event, you want to strike everybody out with 3 pitches if you can. Well, 9 pitches if you can, right? So don't worry about that one bad event. Of course, you want to make it right, but it happens. Everyone's going to have a bad day. Move forward, worry about the next ones, and use that as a learning and teachable moment for yourself and your staff if you're working with staff as well. And a thoughtful response builds more credibility than silence. And this is why you really do need to respond to these bad reviews. Sometimes you don't know what to say. We talked about the protocol and kind of how I approach these things. You don't really have to write much. It's really very simple. But be thoughtful and be professional in your response, and remember that your next client might be reading this, right? So they're going to say, okay, well, Something happened. He's not perfect. He or she is not perfect, but they did their best to try to resolve the issue, whatever it might be. And that really goes a long way. All right. So we talked about bad reviews, but there's one thing here, and I talked about this earlier, that to me is actually more dangerous and a bigger risk than the bad review. And it is something that a lot of people might not be thinking about. Silent, unhappy clients may be a bigger risk than visible reviews. So, what does that mean? I'm going to bring it back to an old job I used to have in my 20s. I used to work for New York Blood Services. So, we basically were the company that did all the blood drives at schools, at your company. And I learned something going through a customer service seminar with them. And it was something to the effect of, for every 30 people that have an experience with your company, or in this case, we're getting blood drawn, if they have a bad experience, out of 30 people, only one of them will leave a bad review. They'll actually engage with you. They'll tell you, you didn't do a great job. I wish it was better. 29 out of those 30 people, and I'm not 100% sure on this exact percentage here, but it's very close. 29 out of the 30, they will not leave a bad review. They will not leave a good review. They won't leave any review, but they will never come back. And just because they're not leaving a public review does not mean that they are not telling their friends, that they are not talking badly about your company, your business, without doing it publicly. And that sometimes can hurt even more, because who knows what they're saying, and you have no opportunity to actually respond to it in a professional way, in a place where others can see it. So they're only these people that are hearing what this bad experienced client had to say. They're only getting one side of the story. They're not seeing the response per se that you might get from the business owner. So the people that are not leaving reviews are the ones you really have to worry about. So what does that mean in this context? Sometimes you, like I said, you have a bad day. Yeah, you did an event, nothing went right. You left, it wasn't the best that you could have done. Those are actually the events to me that I would give that client a call the next day and I would talk to them. I don't necessarily think I would go out and just admit everything I did wrong per se, but I might say, hey, I was just curious what your thoughts were about last night. I know we set it up a certain way and it didn't really seem to follow that exactly. I was just curious to hear what you thought, and open that dialogue up with them, because then they'll tell you, I would hope. And then you have an opportunity to actually respond, explain maybe what or why things didn't happen, whatever the case may be. But I want you to be mindful of the situations where you did have an event that did not go as well as it could have gone, and think about the after effect. Just because that customer didn't leave a bad review does not mean they're not out there telling a million people not to ever do business with your company. So silence is never good when it comes to customers, and the ones who actually are engaging with you and leaving you the bad review, those are the least that you have to worry about, because at least, again, you get to have a conversation with them and potentially bring it offline to resolve the situation. All right. So got a few comments here. Let's go say hello. What's up, Gaines? How you doing, man? Good to see you. Hope you're picking up something today. And let's just go through our recap here. All right. So recap number 1. Bad reviews are inevitable and can be useful. Number 2, response matters more than the review itself. And number 3, long-term reputation is built through consistent professionalism, not perfection. Another typo. Not perfection. No one's perfect. Absolutely not. All right. So the next time you receive a negative review, and it will happen, I want you to try what we talked about earlier. I want you to pause. Wait 24 hours. Do not respond immediately. I want you to reread the review at that point. I want you to really listen and I want you to hear what they have to say. Look at it from their perspective. I then want you to respond professionally and publicly. Invite the conversation offline. Do not engage. Make the response close-ended. The only response that they should have is following your directions to engage with you offline, whether that be please email me or call me directly. I think that one works really nicely. If you give them like a personal cell phone or call my personal cell phone directly, I'd love to work this out with you. I really want to hear what you have to say, that type of thing. And then number 4, and this is something, again, that people sometimes forget, resolve the issue if you can. Even if the event happened 2 weeks ago and you may never do an event for them again, resolve it. Resolve it. Do something. Send them something. Give them money back. Do something that shows that you acknowledge and accept and have accountability for your mistake and the fact that they did not have the best experience, as long as it's credible, of course. Listen, there's going to be bad reviews that are unwarranted. You still have to respond the same way, and you have to still consider them, and you have to still listen to them and hear them. But then some people are unreasonable. They don't want to resolve the issue, and don't waste your time and energy on those people. Do the best you can, but not everything is going to be resolved, and that's just life. So anyway, all right, everybody. So that is what to do when you get a bad review, and they will happen. It's not the end of the world. We're all going to get them. Hopefully they come few and far between. But when they do happen, I hope now you have some insight, some information, and a structure that you can go to actually respond and build long-term trust, because that's the game. That's the goal, right? Well, thank you, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate everyone checking in, as always, on the DJs Guru Hangout. We'll see you next week. And thanks again. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.